What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be discussing whether or not Battlefield 6 should incorporate a Battle Royale mode or not, as it is obviously a very important talking point in this era of BRs dominating the landscape, and I actually have a few points to make on pretty much both sides of the fence on this one. Battle Royale games are definitely a very divisive topic in a way. Some people absolutely love them and some people seem to literally despise them, but whether you love them or hate them, I don't think anyone can deny that we are currently in the Battle Royale era of gaming, where BRs are easily the hottest thing right now in gaming, and when they're done properly they can absolutely make your game explode. When you look back over the last, say, 5 years of gaming, the biggest games are probably Minecraft, PUBG, Fortnite, Apex, Warzone, Valorant, Fall Guys and Among Us. Those are probably like the 8 biggest games in recent titles, and PUBG, Fortnite, Apex, Warzone and technically Fall Guys are all Battle Royale games. So 5 of the last 8 enormous games are all one single genre, and I think that kind of says enough about how popular the game mode is. Now, like I said, it's obviously a much loved genre since it is so popular, but a lot of people seem to really hate Battle Royale games for some reason, not just disliking them, but seemingly hating them with a passion for whatever reason. Whether that's just because they're so popular, or maybe it's just the tough, sort of frustrating nature of the game, I have no idea, but they are definitely divisive to say the least. Now, Battlefield obviously launched their own BR in 2019 known as Firestorm, and it's fair to say it was kind of a bust, not at all because of the game itself though, mostly because it just wasn't free like the rest of the BR games usually are, and so it never really got very popular, and then with the downfall of Battlefield 5, it just kind of died when honestly it probably didn't deserve it, as it was actually pretty well received by most who actually played it. So the question for this video is whether or not I think Battlefield 6 should have another crack at the BR genre, or whether they should just focus on the base game, as I am kind of sitting on the fence on this one, to be honest, and I have a few different points to make for both sides of the argument. Starting on the side of why they should release a BR with Battlefield 6, there's a few very obvious answers as to why they should and why I would love to see it be done yet again. The first reason that it is a good idea is obviously just for the growth and the exposure of the game. If you look at Fortnite and Warzone, those games absolutely blew up, and specifically when you look at Warzone, that game actually kind of blew up Call of Duty in general, as the franchise was definitely not at its strongest point until Modern Warfare and more specifically Warzone came out, at which point it is now doing better than it's ever done, which says quite a lot since it's literally the highest selling game every single year for about the last 12 or so years, minus the years when Rockstar released their games. So the fact that it was already huge and it still somehow blew it up all over again, that pretty much speaks for itself. I think the exposure that the game would get if they really nailed a BR game would be absolutely huge. You'd introduce a whole new demographic of people to the franchise, much the same as Warzone did for Call of Duty. Just look at the amount of Battlefield YouTubers like Jack Frag, Stoddy and Westy, for example, who switched over to Warzone and introduced their entire subscriber base to the game, which in turn introduced all of those people to Call of Duty in general, and without Warzone that almost certainly wouldn't have been the case. Opening up to a larger demographic can help the game generate more revenue, which helps the game see better support for a longer period, and generally speaking, the more successful a game is, the better it will likely be for the players as well, since the developers and the publishers will want to stick with it and improve it for years to come. Now, the other reason I think it would be awesome if Battlefield did release a BR is simply because I personally love BR games, and to get a brand new one this year would be really great to see. I play a hell of a lot of Warzone, and having something to change up the pace would be perfect, especially right now when Warzone has had a couple of rough months. I think a lot of people would love a new BR game, which would also then put pressure on Activision to make sure Warzone stays on top, giving it a bit of competition, which honestly it hasn't really had since it launched, as Apex and Fortnite are definitely both huge games, but they just aren't quite on that same level as Warzone. Now, to quickly jump to the other side and explain why I also kind of don't want them to make a BR is because it could also backfire quite a bit, and after Battlefield 5 I really don't think the franchise can afford that right now. Let's just say they launch a BR and it's absolutely terrible, or it's just not nearly as good as what people expected it to be. That could also be really damaging to their brand if Warzone has kind of picked up by then, and then it just kind of demolishes the Battlefield BR. And so I think if they are to make one, it really has to be a true competitor to Warzone, otherwise it could cause a lot more harm than good. The gaming industry and gamers in general are definitely not very forgiving. If you launch a game and it's not up to scratch, then people will absolutely rant and rave about it, and that can end up hurting the game in a pretty big way. Just look at something like Cyberpunk. That game was meant to be one of the best games of all time, and now it's not even allowed on the PlayStation Store because of how much of a mess it was. And stuff like that definitely hurts CD Projekt Red's reputation, and the next game that they launch will definitely be affected by that, even if they fix the game like they've said that they will. Warzone is going to be a pretty hard game to beat in my opinion, and so it does slightly worry me that a Battlefield BR just wouldn't be able to compete, hurting the game overall, which is not something that it can afford. Now, the other part to that as well is that if they are working on a BR mode for Battlefield, even if it's amazing and it tops Warzone and it's just the biggest success they could hope for, that will still take valuable time and resources away from the base game, which is where the fan base originated from. And so even if the BR is amazing, there's a good chance that the actual base game could still suffer from that. As great as Call of Duty has done in the past 2 years, in my opinion the actual base games in Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War have actually suffered at the hands of Warzone because, one, they're not getting as much content as they probably would be if the teams were 100% focused on the multiplayer instead of sort of juggling that and Warzone. And two, most people who are playing the multiplayer are literally just playing the game to get camos or to level up their guns for Warzone, as most people aren't actually even playing the base game for the game itself, which results in like 4 out of 12 players running around with rocket launchers and people camping in corners to get specific camos. Now, personally, that doesn't really bother me because I do like Warzone way more than the regular multiplayer, so I kind of couldn't care less, to be honest. But all those players who do like the multiplayer that aren't fans of Warzone probably feel like they've been left behind in a way, since most of the focus is actually on the BR mode. So you do kind of have to feel for those guys who have been playing COD for a decade only for the multiplayer that they love becoming essentially a side project in a way. With Battlefield 6, I think they really need to get the game back to that true Battlefield experience, being the big sandbox, large-scale multiplayer game that it has always been in the past. But if they did launch a BR and it became successful and stole the show, then all of those players who just want Battlefield for Battlefield and not for the BR are now pretty much left behind to get a product that clearly isn't the focus anymore, and I don't think anyone really wants that. I think the best case would be that they somehow launch a BR mode that's super successful, meaning Battlefield as a franchise will grow and expand, yet they still focus a ton of their time on the base game and make that really successful as well, keeping their OG fans happy while also introducing a whole new player base to their game. But that is so much easier said than done, and I definitely am curious and, to be honest, quite nervous to see how all of this plays out. If it were completely up to me, I think I would actually bite the bullet and choose for them to completely ditch the BR thing and just absolutely nail Battlefield as a base multiplayer game, get the franchise to where it needs to be, and then maybe in the future they could do both the same way that Call of Duty has done with Warzone. I love Battle Royale modes, and don't get me wrong here, I would absolutely love if we got a new Battlefield BR with the Battlefield 6 launch, but at my core I am a Battlefield fan through and through, and I think I would actually prefer to play it safe and make sure that Battlefield 6 is exactly the game it needs to be, as in my opinion that is more important than getting a bunch of new players in the door if that means the game is going to suffer for it, because let's be honest, if the base game fails, it doesn't matter how many people play the game, those players will not stick around to play it, and therefore it will essentially all be a waste of time in a few years from now. Either way, I'm very torn and I'm super keen to see what they end up doing. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the whole situation, as I think it is a really good topic to discuss, and so I'm keen to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. That is going to do it for this one though, guys. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.